For the first time in the history of our nation, the man who will lead our country will enter the White House as a convicted felon. After months of delays, legal wrangling, and a final hour failed appeal to the Supreme Court, President-elect Trump was sentenced on 34 felony counts for election interference. He will take the oath of office in just 10 days. His unconditional discharge means no jail time, no fines, no punishment. It does confirm he is guilty and a convicted felon. Trump remained defiant during the proceeding, calling it, quote, a witch hunt, adding it was only done to damage his reputation. This is the first time in U.S. history a president-elect will take office as a convicted felon. Joining us to discuss the implications, King 5 political analyst Rob McKenna, former state attorney general. First, Rob, your reaction to the sentencing today.
Well, you put your finger on it. Is the fact that we're about to inaugurate a president who's a convicted felon is really the headline here. The fact that he's not going to be punished for the felonies he was convicted of is also really notable. But as Judge Merchan pointed out, the office of the president brings with it a considerable amount of protection. And you know, as a practical matter, the president has to be able to do his job. And so sentencing him to house arrest, for example, would be impractical. So I think the judge reached a practical conclusion, even though it seems odd that someone who's convicted of a felony receives no punishment, and a lot of people will be reacting to that.
I'm going to get to that in a moment, but I'm wondering how you think this could affect his presidency and how it might intersect with presidential immunity.
Well, it won't affect his presidency. I mean, it just won't have any practical impact on his ability to carry out his duties, I think, realistically. As far as presidential immunity is concerned, this is an important point, and it's why a majority of the Supreme Court rejected his emergency appeal to block the sentencing from occurring. It's because he has an appeal pending. He actually has some pretty good legal arguments to get these convictions tossed out, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happens. Now, it may not happen either, so I wouldn't be surprised at that result. I just think it's possible that his convictions will be overturned, and that's because New York law does not allow the imposition of a felony conviction for falsifying business records unless you're convicted of another felony that you were falsifying records to advance. And he wasn't charged with another felony here, and it isn't clear he could have been charged with violating a federal law under this New York statute that would have related to election tampering.
It's fascinating because a jury obviously found him guilty of 34 counts, all 34 felonies. I'm curious what you think the implications are in terms of how this sentence could affect future cases, how they're handled against other high-ranking officials.
I think that this is a one-off. I don't think we're going to see a president charged with felonies in the future. And I think the fact that he was charged with felonies and not misdemeanors is part of the controversy here that'll cause prosecutors to think twice before going down the same path. But look, one positive for the judicial system out of this whole mess is that it shows that nobody is above the law, which is the point that Judge Merchan was making throughout, and that the jury obviously took to heart as well. So it doesn't matter what your position is in government or in society, you are not above the law, and you can be charged and tried for and convicted of, breaking the law.
What about public trust in the judicial system? Because many might argue it doesn't look like he had the same set of laws that most Americans would have, or same set of rules to follow.
Well, there's no question the fact he was reelected is why he was, basically received a sentence of discharge, no punishment, no probation even. If he hadn't been reelected, I think the outcome would have been different. But his supporters make the argument that this was a politically motivated prosecution in the first instance. In my mind, it's not that he didn't break some law by falsifying business records. It's the fact that he was treated differently and charged with felonies, whereas normally these charges come as misdemeanor charges. The jury convicted him of felonies because those were the only charges in front of them. I think if he'd been charged with misdemeanors, he would have been convicted of those, but that would not have served the political purpose of this prosecution, according to Trump's supporters, which is why they brought felony charges to begin with. So this case has eroded trust in the system on both sides, is the main takeaway.
Yes, some may even argue it challenges the fundamental principles of our democracy and the rule of law. We'll have to leave it there. Rob McKenna, thank you so much. We appreciate your insight and your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce.